All right, this is part two of our information meeting for Israel for 2022 in the fall. If you're watching part two and haven't yet seen part one, probably a good idea to go back and find part one and watch that one first. So in this one, I'm going to follow up with a little bit more information on our itinerary, but I also wanted to cover some primary concerns that most people have when they are first thinking about a trip to Israel. Right now, one of those first things that people think about are what are the COVID requirements. And for about a year and a half, Israel had a requirement that people be vaccinated before they come into Israel and to perform COVID tests, all of those kinds of things on the way in. And then the U.S. had a requirement for people returning to the States. As of the filming of this video, there are no requirements for entering Israel in terms of vaccinations or in terms of COVID tests or anything else related to COVID. There may be still a requirement for people to wear masks on the airplane, but not in almost anywhere that I've ever been in Israel in the last trip. So don't plan on having to wear a mask anywhere at this time. Now, one thing that we know about COVID and requirements is that they change quite frequently. So it is always possible that something will change by the fall, by the time we actually go on our trip. But there's no way of planning for that right now for us. So as of this moment, there's no requirement. And I honestly don't foresee there being a requirement on Israel's part for any kind of vaccination or testing for our trip in the fall. They tend to I think they've kind of gotten over that kind of part of it and just are assuming this is a regular part of life. So can't guarantee that, but that's where I would land on that right now. Okay, so COVID requirements right now are minimal, in fact, non-existent for Israel. The other thing people always have a question about is security. And I've said this so many times, and I always get the same response from people, is that I feel more secure and safe in Israel than I do in my hometown here of Lancaster, California. And that is just the reality. They take security very seriously. You will notice that there are people around who are, police and military who are carrying weapons and who are vigilant or know what's going on. After a while, that will fade into the background. You won't even notice them, but you will feel safe and secure there. So I think that's not a major concern for us. Let me talk with you a little bit about itinerary. And again, I've mentioned that this is a bit of a scaled down itinerary to some extent, but we are really doing the best that we can to get everything in that we can. And so I just want to walk you through. Again, it's on your brochure. It lists the places that we will go. But let me show you on the map what that looks like. So we'll be landing here at Tel Aviv at the airport, the only international airport in Israel, right here next to the coast. And we will stay our first night just a little bit north of Tel Aviv in Netanya. Our first 2 nights will be on the beach here on the Mediterranean. You get an opportunity to dip your feet in the Mediterranean, enjoy the warm water there, swim if you'd like to, certainly walk along the beach and just get yourself acclimated to the time zone, all those kinds of things, and relax a little bit. And that's a really fun part of the trip, and I think you'll really enjoy that. And then our strategy will be really to work our way up the north. So we'll go to Caesarea Maritima, which is a major tourist site in Israel. Has great impact on the New Testament as well. A place built by Herod the Great, and a place that a number of our New Testament figures spent quite a bit of time at. So we'll go to Caesarea first, and then we'll make our way up the coast and up into Mount Carmel. Actually, this is Mount Carmel. All this thumb that kind of sticks out into the Mediterranean here is Mount Carmel. And from Mount Carmel, we will get an opportunity to look down over the Jezreel Valley here. And then we'll head to Megiddo, down in the floor of the Jezreel Valley, and we'll get a chance to check out that very significant tell, the place for which Armageddon is named. And we'll see the battle site for so many important world history battles, and of course that coming future battle as well. We get to see what a tell looks like there at Megiddo, understand the different layers of civilization, about 30 different layers of civilizations stacked up there at Megiddo. From Megiddo, we will make our way across the Jezreel Valley up to Nazareth. So we got to go down and then up, climb the hill up to the Nazareth Ridge, and we'll get a chance to see a wonderful church up there, the Church of the Annunciation, which marks the spot where likely Jesus' house was when he was growing up with Mary and Joseph, and where she heard that she was going to give birth to Messiah. So wonderful time up there. From Nazareth, then we'll make our way to our hotel on the Sea of Galilee. Not a far drive, but it'd be nice to make our base of operations there at the Sea of Galilee for 3 nights. Get to be in the spot where Jesus did a lot of his life and ministry, 3 years worth with his disciples around the Sea of Galilee, and we'll get to understand why that's such a significant place and strategic place for Jesus to do his ministry. particularly Capernaum, where he made his base of operations, where he made his home for those 2.5 to 3 years. We'll also go to Magdala, see some very important sites there, including a first-century synagogue and also a modern church that is stunningly beautiful. I get to spend some time there. The next day, then, we'll make our way north and head up through Chorazin, through Hatzor, to the very northern edge of the country of Israel, modern day, as well as ancient Israel, Dan. Get a chance to glimpse Caesarea Philippi as well, and make our way back down through the Hula Valley to the Sea of Galilee, where we'll spend another night and get a chance to do baptisms on the Sea of Galilee and get to know that place really well. The next morning, we'll make our way down through the Rift Valley, stopping at Beit Shan first. The Rift Valley is the lowest place on earth and culminates in the lowest city on earth at Jericho. The lowest place on earth is the surface of the Dead Sea at minus 1,700 feet, 1,700 feet below sea level. But so we'll make our way down through there, stopping at Beit Shan, which is an Old Testament tell, as well as a New Testament city of Scythopolis, one of the Decapolis cities. Also a very nicely preserved Roman ruin. So you get the sensation of walking on an ancient Roman street there with all the columns and bathhouses and all those kinds of things that are included with that wonderful place at Beit Shan. From there we continue down south, heading towards Jericho, and we'll get to see the ancient city of Jericho, be on top of that place where the walls came tumbling down, and see how that works for Old Testament significance. And then we'll go to Qumran briefly to see the place where the Dead Sea Scrolls were hidden in caves and where they were likely produced in that Qumran community of the Essenes there. And then we'll make our way to our hotel where we'll stay overnight on the Dead Sea, and you'll get an opportunity to float in the Dead Sea and experience that, which is an indescribable thing, but you're going to enjoy that and enjoy having done that at least. From there, the next morning we get up and we head to Masada, and we will go to the top of Masada by cable car and come down by cable car as well. And you'll get to walk around on that place, which doesn't have any biblical significance really, but was the place, well, it maybe has a little bit of biblical significance, but it was the place where in 70 AD, after the destruction of the temple, the Zealots and others hid out from the Romans and resisted their occupation for a number of months before the battle that ensued at the end of that. Okay, so Masada, then from there we get on the bus and we make our way to the southernmost point that we'll encounter on our trip. We'll get to see Beersheba in the distance. We actually won't visit Beersheba, but we'll be able to see it in the distance as we head to Lachish, which is an important fortress on the corner of the Shvelah and the coastal plain. So there's the coastal plain here, the Shvelah here, hill country here. Lachish kind of guards that corner entrance into that hill country, which is where Jerusalem is located. So we'll hit Lachish, and then Azekah and the valley there, the valley where the Elah Valley, which is where the story of David and Goliath happened, where that confrontation happened between David and Goliath on the valley floor there, and we'll get to see that. From Azekah, we'll make our way to Jerusalem and find our hotel, get well rested for that evening. The next morning we will journey up into Samaria, hitting Bethel and Shiloh, and also Jacob's Well up here in Sychar in this area too. Okay, so all that's a very exciting, fun day. Really enjoy that time. And then we'll come back to Jerusalem, stay overnight, and be there for a total of 5 nights in our hotel in Jerusalem. And then for the next number of days, we have basically half days planned. So the half day in the morning, I'll take you around to some very important things for the Old Testament one day, very important things for the New Testament on another day. And then for a third day, we'll talk about the last day of Jesus on earth before his crucifixion and resurrection, and how all that happened, where all that happened in the city of Jerusalem. And then in the afternoons on those days, we'll give you an opportunity to do some souvenir shopping on your own and with the group, and also we'll give you a chance to go to the Holocaust Museum, Yad Vashem. You'll also get a chance maybe to go to some of the other churches that we don't have on our itinerary. I'll take you around to some of those, or introduce you to some other things within the city of Jerusalem. Or if you are feeling confident on your own and comfortable, you can wander around and go back to some of those same places that we saw earlier, places like the Temple Mount. We'll go up there together, but also to the Western Wall, and you can revisit that. We'll go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and the Upper Room, all those kinds of places. So you might want to go back and spend some more time at each of those places, and we'll try to give you afternoons to do that with a smaller group, or with the tour guide, or with myself. So that's that's the itinerary and the plan for us. It's a lot, but it's also 13 days worth, so we spread it out well, so you take in a lot, but you also get opportunity to reflect on those things and spend a good amount of time seeing those and taking them in. Okay, so that's our basic itinerary. Certainly if you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to contact me or email me. And again, you'll be getting my email address with this email that has the links to this video on it. One other thing that I wanted to mention to you that I didn't talk much about in the information meeting yesterday, but I think is important for us, is that there's a number of things that you can do to prepare yourself for the trip ahead of time. And the more that you do to prepare yourself, the better you will be able to take things in while we're there. It is kind of overwhelming, all of the things that are coming at you in terms of the places and the times that we're talking about. Some places have Old Testament significance, New Testament significance, and beyond into the time of the Crusaders and the Byzantine period and the Muslim period. So it's often difficult in Israel not just to know where you are, but when you are in terms of the time period that we're talking about. So it's a lot to take in, but ahead of time I have a class that I've videotaped for you to watch. That's a historical geography of the Holy Land, and you can watch that on our website. I'll send you a link to that as well, to kind of prepare yourself for some of the things that you're going to learn. You're going to want to have a good understanding of an Old Testament and New Testament timeline, when things happened in relation to one another. It's also good to get to know the map a bit so that you can get yourself oriented, to know where you are in space as we're there. All of that really helps so that you're not trying to take in and learn all kinds of new things all at once, but kind of gradually learning those things over the next months. There's a couple other books that I recommend. One of them is this one. It is called Journey with Jesus to Israel, and it's by Dudley Rutherford. You can find this one on Amazon, and I'll include a link to that in this email as well. This one, he goes through an itinerary very similar to ours and just mentions the places that we're going to go, talks about some details of those places, and lists some of the biblical passages for their significance in those places too, things that happened in those places. So read that ahead of time, maybe read that on the plane on the way over, maybe read that in the evenings as you're there as well. A second book that I highly recommend is this one called Where God Came Down, and it's by Joel Kramer. And it has a lot of really helpful diagrams and pictures that help us when we're in specific spots to imagine what these places would have looked like hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, and then to see why we know which places are authentically the places that they claim to be. Now, there are places, multiple places that claim to be the place of the crucifixion and burial and resurrection of Christ. But I think we can know very well from history, from archaeology, where those places actually are, what places are authentic. And how do we know that? Well, it takes a little bit of work, but it's possible to know those places. And so we'll work hard at doing that. But Joel Kramer's book, Where God Came Down, will be a very useful tool to us, and I'll suggest, even require, that you have that with you while you're in Israel. All right, I mentioned again that we're going to have much more information coming on what to pack, what to bring, what not to bring, how to get the currency you might need ahead of time, what to do with your credit cards, and all those kinds of things to make you the best prepared that I can make you. So we'll do another meeting in the future, either at the end of August, beginning of September, to talk about those things. So don't worry too much about those things at the moment. We'll do a good job of preparing you for that a little bit closer to the time that we leave. Okay, so read that information carefully in the brochures that I sent to you. And then if you have questions on top of that, don't hesitate to call me or to call Jessica at Pilgrim Tours, 1-800-322-0788, and her extension is 121. Again, my email address you'll have in connection with this video too. So thanks for hanging in there, watching the information. Hope this was useful to you. Thanks. Bye now.